That's a disease. Citrus.
Wisconsin being infected, you know, where
Green Bay area.
I used to live in La Crosse.
Oh, you did? Okay.
You betcha. Good area, beautiful area.
Irrigation.
Is it? It's not poly though. It's something. Yeah, poly.
Yeah, the dripper. Sprayer. Launch thing. Launch the jet. Decided to switch mine over to max.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Garik Barr. He's just recently joined us
Dr. Rebar.
as our citrus horticulturalist. However, he has lots of experience both as a student here at Florida looking at nursery production, but also in California doing various experiments over there. So we're really happy to have Garik, Dr. Barr, here with us as a citrus horticulturist. And I think, are you going to say something? Well, I'd also like to make sure we introduce Dr. Javad Qureshi. And now Javad is an entomologist, so he grows it. Javad makes sure the bugs that he keeps the unfriendlies off of them and encourages the friendlies to populate. So between the two of them, we're going to do a little presentation about citrus.
Thank you, Dr. Roca. My name is Immokalee-i, and I recently came back home to Florida. I went to California for 3 years working on almonds and pistachios, but I did my PhD studies here with the University of Florida. So I'm a proud caterer. Okay, so now we're talking about citrus. We have our citrus extension agent here, and I have the citrus responsibility here. So if we would like to discuss everything about citrus, you better book your hotel around here. So stay here for a couple of days, and we can discuss all things citrus. But I would actually like to discuss some interesting things about citrus, where and how is citrus grown. My responsibility here is the horticultural production systems, like pruning, training, taking care of young trees, planting systems, designing the orchard, and irrigation and nutrition as well. And like Dr. Roca said, Dr. Javad Qureshi is an entomologist. He is a bug guy, so he takes care of the bugs and insects and all those bad guys. So I will talk a little bit about citrus in general, citrus production in Florida, and then I can tell you a little bit about the work that we do here. Can you hear me well?
Echoing.
Yeah, there's echo.
Okay, so I'll begin with some data on the commercial citrus production in Florida. And in southwest Florida, we have 5 counties: Collier, Glades, Henry, Charlotte, and Lee County. So we, at this center, we focus mainly on this region. And the data for 2015 shows that we have about 25% of acreage of the total acreage of citrus in the state of Florida. And we produce about 27% of the total production of the state of Florida. So we feel a little bit proud here that we are marginally doing better than the rest of the state.
Are we the furthest south of all the counties?
Yeah. So south of us is Everglades. Okay, citrus is perhaps the most diverse genus in the family Rutaceae. Genus citrus has a lot of different types, hybrids, a lot of different varieties, and it is grown on perhaps the most wide range all over the world. It grows between about 35 degrees south of equator to 35 or 40 degrees north of equator. So basically, citrus grows wherever you would like to go for your winter vacation. The citrus likes sunny conditions. It grows well between like 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It likes heat. So we're blessed that we have that kind of a climate in Florida. And Florida is still leading the world and the U.S. In many aspects of the citrus production. In Florida, mainly we grow the varieties that are used for juice making. In California, the stable varieties of citrus that are easy to peel or used as stable varieties, they are grown mostly in California. Lemon and lime is mostly grown on the western coast of California. But in Florida, we focus more on the juice. And together with Brazil, Florida accounts for about 90% of the world's total juice production. Citrus trees originated in what we call the Indochina region, northeast of India and southern part of China. That is the center of origin of citrus. It traveled around the world, and perhaps in 1492, it came with the Columbus voyage here in Florida. Now, I would give you some technical information. The citrus fruit is technically a berry. This berry is called a Hesperidium. I have got a sweet orange fruit for you. And the interesting thing is that citrus is a good source of vitamin C, that's ascorbic acid. And citrus juice only has about 1/4 of the ascorbic acid, the vitamin C. The rest of it, majority of the vitamin C is in the rind, in the fluido, in the glands, in the peel. If you look at it closely on the rind, you will see the oil glands. And citrus, especially the peel, it's a good source of essential oils that are used for fragrance, for other medicinal purposes, or in food, culinary purposes.
Calcium, lots of calcium in citrus.
Right, so the next thing I would like to discuss is the different types and varieties of citrus. This is the Florida citrus. This is sweet orange, delicious sweet orange. I picked a couple of fruits. Mostly has been harvested. So the another interesting thing about citrus is that you would see that these days the citrus trees are blooming, but we just harvested the last year's fruit set, which set after the bloom last year. So citrus is one of those very few crops that have essentially a year-round cycle of fruit development. The bloom happens mostly in spring in most part of the U.S., and the fruit takes about anywhere between 8 to 16 months to be able to full maturity and to go to the edible stage. So you can see a lot of fruit on the trees at the same time as you would see the bloom for the next year. And citrus is an evergreen tree, which means they keep losing leaves around the year, so they don't have a set time like fall, like you would see the temperate zone trees up north. They shed their leaves in fall and then they bring out new leaves in the spring. Citrus leaves, they keep on falling down around the year, and each leaf stays anywhere between 1 to 2 years on the tree. So it's an evergreen tree. In terms of bloom, I told you that citrus blooms primarily in spring.
Winter crops, and we have the insect, and they start to come and infest them, and they become big pests for us because they are competing with the interest and economics of the producers, ultimately of the state and the nation. So here, as entomologists, we work on vegetable and citrus and try to protect them from those pests that are economically important. Citrus, as you heard, is one of the major crops, 9-10 billion industry here in Florida. And it used to be very peaceful in the 80s when there were the insects and there was good balance of beneficial insects that were keeping them under control. And the growers, they didn't need to spray a lot. Basically, it was beneficial insects and a couple of applications of horticultural oils, and that was helping them keep going. In 1998, an insect invaded Florida, and that changed the whole scheme of things in citrus. That insect is called Asian citrus silver. It's a tiny little insect, about 2 millimeters, and it's important as a pest. It feeds on the citrus new growth and even on the mature leaves. And more importantly, it's the vector of a disease called hornblende bean or citrus greening disease. So it basically, when it feeds on the citrus trees, the adults and their young ones, they have the ability to acquire the bacterium, which is the causal agent for that disease, from those disease trees. So as they develop and the adults come out, those adults, they spread from tree to tree and from grove to grove and disperse the disease. Here there are 2 vials, some of you have already seen. I have the adults and the young ones of this insect in those vials that you guys can see. So it's a very tiny insect, but it's right now a major issue in the state, and the disease and the pest both are spreading and causing huge losses. So we have been working on its management. The more you stress this insect, the more you can reduce the incidence of the disease, because that is one of our primary control tactics right now. There is research going on the disease component, and developments being made, but the suppression of the vector is very critical. Even if disease is spread to very low levels, if you have the vector and it continues to feed on those trees, it has the potential to spread it to the new plantings and even to the ones, the mature trees. So we have been working on both the biological control methods and the chemical control. It's important to kind of have a good balance of those tactics, because if you just go with one of those tactics, that might not be enough. And then there are also issues with using some of those tactics, like chemical control. I mentioned that back in the 80s, there was not a whole lot of need to make those sprays in citrus. Now, the growers are making 10 to 12 applications every year of those foliar sprays of insecticides. So when you go with such a strong program, there is always a risk that your insect will develop resistance to some of those products, and you will start seeing the product failures. At the same time, those insects can kill several of these beneficial insects. So you bring them down, then several of your other pests in citrus that were being controlled by these beneficial insects will become a primary pest for you. So that's why it's important to kind of integrate those different tactics and to try to develop more sustainable and economical methods of protection and citrus production in the long run. So we did some studies a couple of years ago and found out that in our system we had several lady beetles and some other beneficial insects that were doing a very good job against this insect. They were destroying them 80 to 90%, but still, I would say that is not enough. But again, it's a disease vectoring insect, so we need to suppress them more. Also, with the use of insecticides, some of these beneficial numbers have gone down, and so we are also working on some of the beneficial insects that are commercially available, but they were never tested against this insect. So we are testing them to see if they have the potential, so that we have more candidates to release in the system. They may be less effective in the commercial citrus, where we have a lot of these insecticides being sprayed, but this insect, it is spread in the landscape. you guys have citrus in your backyard, the insect is there. Then we have another ornamental relative of citrus in the same family. It's an ornamental plant called orange jasmine. And that is planted as ornamental in the people's backyards, as well as around some of the hotels and motels and in those places. And that's a very favorite host of this insect as well. So there are use of these beneficial insects, not only in the commercial setting, but as well as in the overall landscape, where we need to suppress this vector as much as we can. So we are working on those beneficial insects that are commercially available. And then you will see a few of these lady beetles here in these petri dishes. Some of you have already seen. And then there are 4 walls here. There's a tiny little wasp in those walls, even smaller in size than a mosquito. So those are also beneficial. These are called parasitic wasps. And we brought those from different regions of the world, including some of the regions where this pest came from. China, Pakistan, India, Vietnam, from those regions. And we have worked with the federal and regulatory agencies over the years to establish a huge mass raising facility for this parasite, which is now established in Dundee, Florida, in collaboration with the Division of Plant Industry. And millions of these parasites are being produced and provided to the growers to release in the commercial settings, as well as in the landscape, in the people's backyards, and in the abandoned groves as well. So these are most of the developments on the beneficial side, the biological control we call, use of beneficial insects. And then obviously the chemical control, that's also important because we want more suppression of this insect, and that's one of the methods that provides us with maximum kill. So we have been working on that, trying to teach growers how you can use these insecticides more effectively, try to use them at the time of the year when these beneficial insects are not more common in the groves. So we mentioned earlier that this time of the year, a little before, like November, December, and January, that's the time of the year when you will see these trees not producing any new growth, not producing any buds or those young shoots. And those are the shoots that this insect likes to lay their eggs and develop. A single, this tiny little female can lay 500 to 800 eggs. So you can imagine the potential of it spreading in the system. So we developed some systems and tested and told growers that if they spray the hard chemistry insecticides at that time of the year, when beneficial insects are not common, so then they can target only the adults of this insect, which are there in the groves, and suppress them as much as they can. So as we move into the growing season, like spring, when you also have the honeybees active pollinating the trees, and then several of the beneficial insects come and colonize those trees. So that when very few are able to get into this new growth, and then they can use the softer chemistries that are less harmful to the beneficial insect, and also give a chance to these beneficial insects to flourish and impact the populations of this insect as well as several others. So that's kind of the strategy that we are going with. And over the years we have tested hundreds of treatments of these insecticides and provided growers on their effectiveness, so they know what to use, and there are different chemistries and mode of actions that they can rotate during the year, so that this insect is not developing resistance to some of those products, so that we can maintain those products, their effectiveness over a longer period. Because we are limited in some of the chemistries, so if you get the product failures, that's even a worse situation that you are not able to control, and then you have the populations breeding and developing that are resistant to those chemicals. So that's where we are. We are using these biological and chemical methods of pest control and advising them also that you need to monitor the populations of these insects. So we have given them the tools to how to monitor these insects. We have developed methods. One of them is common called the tap sampling method. It's used across the state and by the federal agencies as well to monitor about 6,000 blocks in the state. So they have most of the tools that they need right now to deal with this pest, and there are developments being made on developing the resistant plants, resistant to the disease, and hopefully we will have those come along and deal with this pest, this complex. I think Fritz is going to kill me if I continue. So. Yeah, please go ahead.
So it sounds like a lot more management and a lot more costs are going into this. What's this doing to the economics of citrus in this area?
Here is our economist right here.
The question was about the economic impact of citrus green, or as Javad said, one green, HOP, all the same thing. If not actually, you can also start getting on the buses, 1 and 2. The economic impact, I can tell you, before greening, which is say going back to 2004, for juice oranges, maybe $600 to $800 an acre will get you to a good crop of juice oranges. Now, if you grow fresh fruit, different ballgame. But now to grow a box or to grow an acre of juice oranges, you're looking at least $1,800 to $2,000 just to get that crop, and most of that is in the plant protection, bug control part that Javad is telling you, as well as some additional nutritional things that Green is working on to kind of compensate for the disease. So that's and you're paying 3 times as much and getting maybe 50% less fruit. So not a good economic situation. But offsetting that, the price of oranges has never been higher. So, and you see that when you go in the grocery stores, you find some juice, where it's natural, it's made. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it seems to me that a big part of the problem is growing all this citrus in a monocropping system, where you have hundreds and thousands of acres of the same, and then you spray insecticide, you spray pesticide, you kill all the beneficial insects. Then you're going to have a problem. The ecosystem is out of balance. The bugs cannot keep it in balance because you come in and spray, and then you need to micromanage it more. So why don't we grow in a more sustainable system, like in a polyculture, more organic, no spraying or just a little bit, and that would take care of beneficial insects, and birds can move in and keep the system in a balance.
Yeah, that's a good school of thought.
You all heard the question, right?
Because I'm a farmer myself, and I'm trying to set up a little organic farm and in a polyculture system, and trying to avoid having to deal with pests and spraying and all that stuff.
Actually, I have been working on the organic systems as well for the last 2 or 3 years. So comparing organic systems versus conventional systems. And we have seen that we can get good suppression. The issue with the organic insecticide is that the residual effect is not as long as you would see with some of the conventional insecticides.
How about not using any insecticides? Because I don't use any on my 5-acre farm. And I'm just gonna, whatever survives, and I'm just gonna keep the good and strong plants. Whatever dies, dies.
But the problem is that once you get the disease and you get the pest pressure, they are going to go down and down. So you need to control the vector, and it's good that if you do it in a more sustainable way. And that's why, as I said, we are working on it so that we can come up with the products that even the conventional growers, they can use the organic products to reduce the stress that they are providing with the conventional insecticides.
How frequently has to be the application of an organic system, because it has to be with the life cycle of the bugs?
Yeah. So in the organic system, at least by 2 to 3 weeks, you need to make an application.
Yeah.
It just seems to me, every time you always have to play catch up,
Yeah. It's always you need to be monitoring them. And obviously, this is a disease-vectoring insect, so there is no threshold. Some people say, "Oh, we need one." If you see one cell, you are.
I don't know. I mean that
I'm sorry, but
right.
maybe
You ever use it to mop with the sponge? We could talk more about that on the class too. I want to make a comment on that.
we're trying to take notes. I want to understand that. That's really important. So you're into sustainable organic